I'm always wondering if what's going to be said is what should be said. And as you know, when I look at some of these things that the Lord leads me to, I struggle personally to know if what I'm saying is truly from Him and leads you into greater study. Because that's the purpose, is not for me to teach you something like I know something. I want to many times just open you up so that you're willing to dig deeper and maybe question why you believe the way you believe. Not necessarily turn away from the Father in any way, but to actually study deeper and be ready for these end of days. Because right now we're in them. And what are you going to do? What am I going to do? I wanted to take you through a few things here today that I felt were important. And there's some things in this teaching that I'm going to be showing you today that I don't normally talk about. And in case some of you get offended by it, I'll just apologize early. I'll apologize. Yeah, I know. All right. Okay. Good luck with that. So, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Okay, so you tell me, where is this from and when was this taken? Anyone have any idea? What? Oregon? Anyone know? Huh? These are internment camps that were actually built in Germany before the war began. Looks pretty clean and tidy, right? We also know that the U.S. built some of these camps for some of our Japanese brethren. And if you look at modern day pictures, you're going to see some of the exact looking camps in Australia right now that people are being put into right now. Austria right now. New Zealand right now. Germany right now. And we even have camps like this in the U.S. And it's interesting that as we look over these camps, we're wondering, well, shoot, I mean, that can't really happen, right? It can't really go on. But it did, and it has, and it is. It did, it has, and is. So the interesting thing is that someone comes knocking on your door, and they may look like this. Now, this was pre-World War II. And when they came knocking on the door, they usually said this one thing: you must go with us now. Grab your bag. You get one suitcase. One suitcase. And in today's world, in Australia, you get one suitcase. When you go to Austria, you get one suitcase. It's still happening. It's the same thing. One suitcase. What will you take if this shows up at your door? Right? We did do it. Now, some of you are thinking, well, I'm going to take a lot of stuff, all right? And I'm going to make sure I protect some of my wealth and the things I have. In fact, I maybe have wealth on my jewelry. Those things won't go by the way. Gold and silver never go away. Maybe I have it in my teeth. But guess what they say to you? Well, we'll just take it out of your teeth. And we'll take that jewelry that's on you. This is what happens. This does happen, and it will happen. Millions and millions of dollars were taken off the Jewish people. And as they came into prison, their teeth were taken out of them and gold was extracted. I'm not saying that some of us maybe invest in things right now trying to be a good steward of what has been given to you. But don't think for a moment that anything you have will save you in any sort of economic upheaval. It does not happen that way. The government has full and complete power to do what they want to you, to what you have and what you own. We know that even from Joseph's time, because as the famine came into the land, and as the famine got worse, what did everyone in Egypt do? Take our cattle, take our money, take the last thing we own, and we enslaved ourselves to you and our land. Wow, I hate this message. I don't like stating it, but it's reality. Don't be thinking that you can just survive this in human flesh. And just in case you know, and you might want to turn your children here for a moment, but the same thing that is unvalued when it comes to jewelry, gold, money, whatever you may have on you, your life is not valued either. And it becomes a rubble and a heap of everyone that is discarded from this society because they don't view you as being relevant anymore. You don't fit the narrative. You don't fit the agenda. You don't fit what should be done. And so forth, since you don't fit, we'll just discard you. This has happened. It is happening. And it will happen. Please don't think for a moment that this is not going to happen. I want to wake you up to this, and I just can't stand it. How do I know? It's already happening within your society. Young people, please pay attention. We live in a land right now that is void of Yahweh's laws. We're void of Torah. We're void of those things that are held precious to Him. And when things are void of Yahweh's laws, it breaks apart. We already know that these things are breaking apart because it's happening on your daily news right now. We print money faster than we know what to do with it. Inflation is skyrocketing. The vaccinations doesn't stop the spread, but we're going to go ahead and force passports and mandates anyways. The same cities that are dying of violence, we take the police away and defund them. The textbooks that are being given to children are being filled with pornography, and parents are told to be quiet. Businesses are being shut down as rapidly as they begin, and if you don't believe what's happening to you, they send you to re-education camps that are right now. And even the very thing that's going on, even when it comes to genderism, please understand that that is a complete falsehood and a lie. Right now, if you were to say publicly at any university to a transgendered man who believes he's a woman, and you say to him, well, you can't have a baby, you will be filed for hate speech. You will be kicked out of your college, and you might even have federal things come against you. Don't think for a moment that we're not moving towards those very days that happened in pre-World War II. A picture says 1,000 words. What picture are you keeping in your mind as you learn to trust your Messiah, Yahweh God, in following His laws? Because right now there's no other path. There is no other path. Israel left. They didn't have anything with them what they left. They were slaves. They had nothing. Zero. But when they left, Yahweh blessed. Where did it come from? Was it from their own hands? No. No, it's from their enemies. So as we start looking beyond the negative and we start looking to where your hope comes from, our hope comes from God our Father, Yahweh Elohim. That's our hope. And as we do that, we can know that as we look through that and we hope forward to His kingdom and moving towards a righteous land, we know that these things like gold does not save us. That whole thing is man's attempt to do well. We can't count on anything made of this world This particular picture was taken from all the gold taken out of Iran, not all of it, but just a large portion, and then redistributed. Interesting, right? Now, some of you are going, well, that will never happen in the United States. I can hang on to things that are very precious. Really? I want to remind you of something. Under executive order of the President, FDR, all persons are required, and this is in April 5, 1933, on or before May 1, all gold bullion, gold certificates now owned by them of Federal Reserve branch, you must hand it in. This was executive order law. This was law. They shut down businesses from taking gold, and they even shut down people from holding gold. Unbelievable. Why? Because the government had overspent their money and inflation was rampant. So they took all of your gold. Interesting. Is inflation starting to run rampant right now? Unbelievable. Things seem to go around in a circle, don't they? Speaking of circles, I want to get into some hope, and this is the area that I told you that I usually don't delve into. My wife and I, we use this next area of Scripture many times as an area for support if it is a second witness, and I want to bring you to it for a minute because it's important. VaYechi, and he dwelt. We are going to be dwelling real soon in a new kingdom. We will be. Okay? And I can hardly wait for that time. Because I just showed you pictures that are negative, not easy to digest, right? I don't like those thoughts. I'm a positive person. I can't stand talking negative. It drives me nuts. It makes me cloudy. Okay, but at the same time, I want to have joy. So we looked into today's Torah, and the very first scripture seemed to show something. And I just want to share with you what we found. Don't be mad at me. Just see if you can receive something. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt and Goshen 17 years, so the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. Many times we skim over these texts and we go, well, cool, 17 years and 147. Okay, cool, that's all right. Nice life, right? But what's in these things? What can we find? What's in the Hebrew side of this that can maybe show us something to have confidence even in the very text? Now remember, scriptural text stands alone on its own. Is that correct? Yes. Any other deviation, any other step away, if it's a support or gives second witness to the text, then it's held in esteem. If it does not support text, it's not held in esteem. That's how many times we know when we're looking at different manuscripts or different books. Okay? So I decided to look into this from the letter alphabet. 17 years, when we look at this on Joseph's life, 17 years is the 17th Hebrew letter. What letter is that? Pei, which means to do what? Speak or open your mouth. Now, some of us who like to work with some of these words and these letters, we find out that if you break the 17 open and you do 1 plus 7, it equals 8. What letter is that? Het. It means to separate or to fence off. Het. It has a numeric value of Pei, or the numeric value of Pei is 80. Now, we sometimes take, those of us who study these numbers, we pick words that seem to have a high level of significance. And in this particular text, Pei, we're going to stay with that, which has a numeric value of 80. So we're going to start from the Aleph, and we're going to circle the alphabet 80 times. And what it lands on is the Nun, which is equal to life. So let's break this down a little bit more. On the account of Joseph and Jacob, Joseph spoke Pei into his household. Was it well received? No. So at 17, he was sent away to Egypt. But Joseph was separated or fenced in to keep safe while he was in Egypt. That's the het again. All right? Joseph was given life, and he gave life to whom? His family, that's the noon. So in this very first text, we see the Pei, the Het, and the noon. Jacob himself is able to speak Pei and bless Pharaoh. Jacob's family is separated with the Het, with the surrounding of the fence while in Egypt, and Jacob's family is given life, the noon. And then Jacob himself is given life for another 17 years, the very 17 years that were taken from him. Interesting. Now you're looking at this and go, well, Roland, what's up with that? Who cares, right? Well, the only reason why I kind of look at these things is because it gives me confidence again in knowing that God knows what he's doing. And many times when he goes ahead and gives us numbers, it allows me to go, yeah, there's something to that. Maybe I ought to just pay attention. He's consistent. He knows the laws of gravity. He knows the laws of the universe. Why wouldn't he know the laws of numbers? So I look at this here again. Now we look at the words from Peter, and I want you to just listen to this for a minute because I thought they're amazing. This is in your Brit. Distressed by various trials, whom? You and me. That the proof of your faith being more precious than gold. What's more precious than gold? Faith. Okay? May be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of whom? That's our faith. All right? So, it says this later on in the verse, conduct yourselves in fear during the time of your stay upon earth. Think about that for a minute. Conduct yourself in fear, that means respect for this little life that we have while we're here on earth. Conduct ourselves. How do we conduct ourselves? By his Torah, his laws. So I'm going to conduct myself. Knowing that you were redeemed by perishable things like silver or gold. What? Your feudal way of life inherited from your forefathers, but with I'm not redeemed by silver or gold, but I'm redeemed by precious blood as of the Lamb, unblemished and spotless, the blood of Yeshua, our Messiah. That's what's precious. So I looked into this just a little bit further, just for fun, because I was curious what was going on with Jacob. So Jacob has a life of 147 years, right? So from the Aleph, if I circle 147 times, because this has a lot of significance, I land on what? The Samak, which means to do what? Support or even twist. Now, I find this fascinating with Jacob, because Jacob does a whole lot of supporting. He studies in where? Where does he study? The tents of Shem. So he's supporting his belief in Yahweh. But he has a whole lot of twists in his life, doesn't he? And he has to deal with some of those deceptions. And by dealing with some of those deceptions, does Jacob grow up? Yes or no? Did he grow? Yes. Okay? Because he still had a support towards Yahweh, had a belief in that. So if I take the 1 plus 4 plus 7, it equals 12. The Lamed, meaning control or authority. Now, where does he get that authority? Well, I have 12 sons or tribes. Now, if I also look at another one out of the 12, I do the 1 plus 2 equals 3. That's the Gimel, meaning to lift up or benefit. Now, if I'm also still back at the Lamed has a numeric value of 30. 30 times from the Aleph comes to Het or to separate. So there we are again. But let's look at how it breaks down. Jacob's life picture. Supported the Samak. He had a belief in Yahweh because he studied in the tent. He had twists because of his life is due to deceptive antics. He's given 12 sons of authority, Lamed. Spoke to Pharaoh with the authority, Lamed. The line of Yeshua from the loins of Jacob, Yeshua is lifted up. We have the Gimel. Fascinating. Are your minds going, who cares? We've done this before. Many of you have done this before. But I want to reiterate it because it solidifies our belief system. It solidifies our belief system. How do I know? Let's look further. If I take Yeshua the Messiah, he speaks truth. What is that? Pei. He has authority, Lamed. So what flees? The demons, they flee when he speaks. He does the supportive works of the Father. Shamek. He protects and separates us. What is that? Say it. Yes. By the gift of the Spirit. He lifts us up by what? The gimel. The camel of life. He pours out his blood so we do what? Receive. We receive life. The noon. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of blessed by some of these things when I look at them. Now, this is what I'm saying. Roland hardly ever talks on these things because sometimes we have a tendency to get too heady as a group, right? And we sometimes look at these things and we're going, well, you're being just a little bit weird. It just happens. That's by chance. But I believe that we always talk about every word means something in Scripture, right? So why don't we ever look at every numerical value has something in Scripture? Now, I'm not asking you to believe in numerology. I'm not saying that. Because how did I start this thing off? If it does not line with Scripture, is it to be kept or thrown away? Thrown away. But if what we find lines up with Scripture and it supports the belief system of what we found in Scripture, can it give you confidence? Yes. And that's what it did to me. 17 years and 147 years had meaning and value in the life of Joseph and Jacob. That means I get to receive that same meaning and value by what the Messiah does for me. We've all talked about this thing about Joseph being a picture of whom? And through the line of Jacob, who do we have? Yeshua. Okay, so if these things are true, then I can have faith in knowing that Yeshua speaks truth. John 1, in the beginning was the Pay. In the beginning was the Word. The spoken Word. And every action that Yeshua makes, and this is what's so amazing when we share with people, when we go out into the world and we share, not only will people listen to you if Yahweh wants them to come to see you, but what are you going to say to them? They see your actions, right? So whose authority do you now have? Can you speak with authority? I hope and pray that we do. Is that authority to be given like this or in love? In love. So that they see the works of Yeshua, because he does the works of his Father. Again, that's said in the book of John. I do the works of my Father. All right? He protects us. So when we're getting ready to leave this world behind, who's put a spirit or a fence around you? Through the rock. And now we can remember the life of Joseph and Jacob, because they too had a spirit and a fence put around them so they would live. You will live. We will live. My request is that we no longer think in the dark, but think in light. And ask Yeshua to come into our lives, be on our knees daily, open up the Word, and start putting that fence around you and around me so that I only see what is good. By doing that, we are lifted up. We're lifted up out of this life of sin. Every single encumbrance that has been upon us, we are told will be taken away from us. How? If we but ask. Father, cleanse me from, you fill in the blank. Say that for a minute. Father, cleanse me from. Keep saying that every day that we wake up, and you'll be blessed. You will receive his blood, and by doing that, we receive life. That's where life comes from. I don't know about you, but I'm super excited about this week's Torah. There's a whole lot more here involved. We read the 1 Peter text to you, but there's many other pictures within the Torah section itself. And even when you go to the 1 Kings text, you're going to learn a lot about David and him handing that kingdom over to Solomon. And I want to ask you this question before you go to that midrash. If you study the King's text in the Haftorah in your group, and King David hands over the kingdom to you and says, I want you to do this. Will you do it? Solomon did the orders of his father, David. David was on his deathbed, and David asked Solomon to clean things up. Pay real close attention to that study, because we are told to clean things up too. Remember who was told to get cleaned up? Do you remember those? The priest, the general, and the brother. The priest, the general, and the brother. The priest, the holy heart spirit within you. The priest. The brother, the flesh. The general, what kind of rules you, your soul. Think about that for a minute. There are parallels between what David asks Solomon to do and what Yahweh and Yeshua are asking each and every one of us to do. Clean up our brother, our priest, and our general. It starts here first, before you go pointing the finger at someone else. Getting it? I'm so getting it. It's got to start here. Hopefully by me sharing this with you today, that you'll start with yourself and ask to be cleaned up as we get ready to go on a journey away from this earth, away from these little problems that we're having, okay? And you won't have to see those ugly pictures anymore, but you'll only see the glory of the Father and as He bestows life upon you. Are we in agreement? Are we okay? Let's just bow our heads. Father God, thank you. Thank you for the pictures that you show us. Now, Father, ask us to stop just talking about it. Move us to the point where we actually walk and do and speak. Father, we've been heady way too long. We've always thought about ideas or ideology or philosophy or theology and all that stuff. Move us away from that into action to where we put the fruits of the Spirit on, where we accept your love and attention. We're able to share with one another in a transparent, holy, and righteous way. Father, let us move to your righteousness. Move us gently and consistently as you take us through this path. Father, we just bless your name, and we want to thank you for being our God, for there is no one else but you. So, Father, as we leave here and we study and we open up your word, that you'll come into our hearts, our souls, our minds as we discuss and digest with one another, that we hear one another, that we listen, and then we grow in you and in you alone. We thank thee, Father, in thy blessed name. And everyone said, Amen.